Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Cloud Chats with Cats. In today's episode, we'll take a look at what I think is a fun exercise that will allow us to create something that can be used actually in your day-to-day life. So what are we looking at today? Well, we're going to take a look at Code Server, which is a way to run Visual Studio Code on a remote environment and then access it via your browser on any device that you want. Yes, even an iPad or an iPhone. This will allow us to have a consistent development environment and access it from our other devices than our laptop, so we can, get some work done whenever we don't have the laptop with us. So I think this will be a fun experiment to try out, and we're gonna run Code Server on OCI and get it set up on the always free tier. So in order to set up Code Server, we can actually use a Terraform script. They've got a button available on their GitHub page where you can just deploy Code Server with a simple click to OCI. We can also do an installation manually if we don't want to use some of the stuff that they use by default, or if we want to use a compute machine that we already have. Today we're gonna do a manual install because I want to be installing Code Server on a machine that runs Oracle Linux 8. After we install Code Server, we will also take a look at how we can access it through SSH tunneling, and then we'll do something a bit more interesting that will allow us to access it from an iPad. Because of course we can't do SSH tunneling from our iPad. For that we will be using Nginx and we will be using Let's Encrypt to get the certificate so we can expose our Code Server through HTTPS. But first of all, let's take a look at how to install it on OCI. First of all, we will create a virtual machine running on Oracle Linux 8 and configure it so we can access it via SSH. Now that we are connected to our virtual machine, we can run the install script and set up the daemon so we can start Code Server once the machine boots up. Now that we're done with the installation, let's see how we can access it through SSH tunneling and play around a bit. So now that everything is running properly, let's see how we can connect to it. At this moment, we can do a session through SSH tunneling and forward the local port 8080 to the machine. After we do that, we need to copy the password from the Code Server configuration file, and we are into our environment. And now for the last part and the fun part, if we have a domain name, we can use Nginx and Let's Encrypt to expose our Code Server through a domain name, and then we can access it on our iPad. So let's take a look at how we can achieve that. So we will need to expose our Code Server on HTTPS and use certificates. For that, we will be using Let's Encrypt and Nginx. There are a few commands that we need to run to install Let's Encrypt on our Oracle Linux 8 machine. And of course, we also need to install the Nginx server from the repos. Once Let's Encrypt is installed, we can ask it to generate a certificate for us. And now we need to change the Nginx configuration, or basically create a new configuration in conf.d for code server. Where we are going to use a subdomain from a domain that we have. Personally, I have this one from godaddy.com. We also need to add the IP address as an A entry in the DNS records, of course, and set it to bind to our subdomain. Also, don't forget to add the HTTP and HTTPS services to your firewall and reload it. And then we will tell Nginx that it needs to redirect that domain name to our machine. Once all of this is done, we can contact Let's Encrypt and ask for a certificate, of course, waiting for a bit of time until the DNS records update. And of course, the port 443 also needs to be opened in the Virtual Cloud Network's security list. And the last step for our configuration, we need to allow HTTP access in Linux, because we need to connect from Nginx to our code server locally on the machine. And that's it. Now we can connect in a browser using our subdomain. And here is our code server installation. That was it for today's video. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found it fun and useful. Happy coding, and I'll catch you all in the next video.